All right, we are now 4 weeks into the Jayden Daniels experience, and so far, results are pretty good. Obviously, there's been some ups and some downs, but there's been more ups than downs, and ultimately, that is what matters. Also, by the way, shout out to Cliff Kingsbury for designing an offense that has a lot of mechanisms built into it to account for the fact that they don't particularly have a great offensive line. So if you can go multiple straight games without punting, despite having the 8th worst offensive line in terms of pass protection efficiency on true drop back passes, I know that's a whole bunch of jargon in there, but trust me, we're going to get to it. But ultimately, what I'm saying is, Cliff, you've done a good job. If you look at the entire structure of the Commanders' offense, the whole point of it is tailored to just make Jayden Daniels' life as easy as possible. They have the highest percentage of screen passes in the entire league at 25.9%, even higher on first down, by the way, at a whopping 45%, which is nuts. They have the second highest RPO percentage as well at 22.3%, which is also higher on first down at 30%. And overall, they have the 8th highest percentage of their throws being on play action at 29%. I mentioned a couple of those first down specific numbers, and those are important because if you add them all together, over 3/4 of their plays on first down specifically are either runs or screens. Their whole goal is just to get 5 yards. That's all they want. They just want to be in second and medium. And we'll get to why that is in just a second. But first, I want to talk about motion, because just like all the other offenses that are featuring rookie quarterbacks this year, the Commanders are one of the bottom 5 teams in the league in terms of their usage of motions before the snap. Specifically, they're at 29th in the NFL at 47.3% of all offensive snaps using motion, which I know sounds like a lot, but relative to the rest of the NFL, it's not a lot. And 2 of the only offenses that are below them in this ranking are, of course, the Bears and the Broncos. The Bears are 30th, the Broncos are 32nd. Now, as for why that actually matters, on the surface, it might seem like it doesn't, because the Commanders' offense is putting up a lot of points, and they're winning games, and they're pretty successful, even though we've been told for years and years and years that more motion equals good. So what's the deal here? Why does it matter that the Commanders don't have a lot of motion, but they're still having success? Well, I think a lot of people misunderstand what motion actually does. Yes, it can be an indicator of when a team is in man coverage versus when they're in zone, but modern defenses are pretty complex, and oftentimes they're going to give you kind of a fake tell where they're going to follow the motion player and make it look like they're in man, but they're still going to be in zone. They're just flipping responsibilities. So if anything, that motion can just help a defense cloud the picture for a young quarterback. Not to mention, to go a little bit down a rabbit hole here, man coverage isn't that common in the NFL. In fact, most coverages are zone. If you take every single coverage snap for every single team across the entire league, the average is about 20% of those snaps being man coverage. Everything else is going to be zone, or at least some form of zone, whether it's zone match, spot drop zone, fire zones, etc. I'm not going to get into that today, but overall, man coverage is not as common as you think. So if you're trying to use motion to discern when they're in man and when they're in zone, oftentimes all that motion does is just make them muddy the picture on the back end, where they're going from one type of zone coverage to a different type of zone coverage, and they're going to make it as hard as possible for that young quarterback to figure out which one they're in. Not to mention a lot of defenses these days, whether they're in cover 3 or quarters or quarter half or half quarter, which is cover 8, or any number of looks, they're going to start out with 2 high safeties no matter what, and then they're going to get into a post snap. So you're not really going to know what they're in anyway. So keeping the offense static, at least for a young quarterback, is a way to help them just look at the picture in front of them, keep it as still as possible, and then figure out, based on the depths of the safeties, based on where the corners are, based on the front, based on all these little context clues, all staying in one spot without responding to motion, what they're actually in. Now, back to my earlier point, I mentioned that philosophically, this offense is built to get 5 yards on first down come hell or high water, whether they're running the ball, whether they're using screens, whether they're using RPOs. Their whole goal is to get to 2nd and 5. And the reason why they want to get to 2nd and 5 is because they think they can be very explosive in that particular situation. On first down, this team is in the bottom 10 in terms of yards per play, but on second down, they're second in the entire league in terms of yards per play. They're an extremely explosive offense on second down. And that's because on 2nd and 5, more so than any other distance on second down, that is where you're going to see man coverage, and that is where you're going to see blitzes. I said earlier that the average amount of man coverage across the entire NFL is about 20%. Well, on 2nd and 5, that goes up 4% to about 24%. And that's a pretty sizable difference if you're familiar with how big of a sample size we're working with here. And then, of course, blitz rates are also at their highest on 2nd down when it's 2nd and 5. Not 2nd and short, not 2nd and 10 if you try to bomb it down the field and you throw an incomplete pass. 2nd and 5 is the sweet spot. Specifically for this team at least, because their quarterback is Jayden Daniels. If you get man coverage looks and you get blitz looks, you know what really hurts those two things a lot? A gifted athlete at quarterback that also has a lightning quick release. If you're in man coverage and everybody's back is turned because they're plastered to their receivers, you don't have anybody with their eyes on Jayden Daniels. So if he breaks contain or if he makes somebody miss in the backfield, you're kind of screwed. Like, he's going to get a first down with his legs, if not more than that. But he also has such a quick release that even if you're getting home, he can probably get that ball out before you get there anyway. If I was designing a quarterback in the lab to beat a blitz-heavy defense, it's going to be Jayden Daniels. He's accurate, he's got an incredibly fast release, but most importantly of all, if you miss him the first time around, it's basically a free first down. And he can do that over and over and over again until you get so frustrated as a defense that you stop blitzing, you stop playing man coverage, and then it basically just looks like the Bengals game, where they rushed 4 and they played soft zone coverage, and then he carved them up anyway. Moral of the story, I guess if I was a defensive coach, there's just not a lot of good answers here. Before we move on, I'm recording this at like 1 in the morning because just a little while ago we wrapped up our TNF live stream for the week over on our podcast channel, the Bootleg Football Podcast. And on that TNF live stream, we watched 2 other NFC East teams, the Giants and Cowboys, attempt to play watchable football. They were okay. Also, I know this is going to take me on a tangent real quick here, but I don't know what other video to put this rant into. Deonte Banks, dude, what are we doing? You're jogging from the 24-yard line. Like, I get it, you got beat. You're probably not going to catch CD, but you run 4.3, dude. Like, he's a yard ahead of you. You're jogging from the 24? Where's the effort? Like, what are we doing? Also, Terrence Steele is not a great pass protector. Why are we putting him one-on-one in pass pro if we can avoid it? Also, third thing, on 3rd down, why is every single route like 3 yards short of the sticks? Just watching that entire game gave me a fucking aneurysm. I truly think the Commanders might be the 2nd best team in this division, and that's saying a lot. Because good God, like, this is a team that's down to Mike Sainer still playing outside corner for them because they're so banged up and they can't trust Michael Davis and they can't trust Noah Igbenogany. So you got Mike Sainer still playing 5 outside snaps in week 1 and 2, and then you put him outside against Jamar Chase because they don't have any other options. Now they have to play cover 2 25% of the time. This division's a mess, and the Commanders still might be the 2nd best team. I think this is supposed to be a transition to an ad read. Anyway, I'm recording this super late at night, and that's because on long production days like this one, I don't really have time to do much of anything, which is why if I eat at all, it helps to have factor meals because they can be done in like 5 minutes. Boom, stuck the landing. See that transition? I knew I'd get there eventually. Anyway, if you haven't heard of Factor before, you probably haven't watched much of this channel because they sponsor me every single month for like 3 straight years. But the point of Factor meals is to make it easy for you to eat on busy days where you're forced to watch the Cowboys play football. Honestly, I don't normally have that much time to cook at all during the week, even though I like to. Shout out to that chicken, bacon, garlic, basil pesto pizza that I made a couple days ago on a cauliflower crust. That was awesome. But I can't make that kind of stuff every single day. It takes a lot of time, and most of the time I need something fast, and that is what Factor meals are for. All of these meals can be heated up in the microwave in just 2 minutes. They taste great. There's a ton of variety, so you never get bored. There's over 35 different meal options per week with more than 60 add-on options, including their protein shakes, which I just picked up this month as well. So if you're interested in getting meals that can be made fast, eaten conveniently, and still be tasty, all delivered to your door, I highly encourage you to check out Factor. They keep me going on days and weeks like this one. So if you go to factor75.com, use promo code 50FilmRoom, that will get you 50% off your first Factor box and 20% off your next month's box as well. Again, promo code 50FilmRoom at factor75.com for a 50% discount and a 20% discount on your second month too. Thank you once again to Factor for sponsoring today's show. And with that, let's go back to talking about something positive about the NFC East for once. This is going to sound weird when I say this about a quarterback that has more scoring drives under his belt this season than incompletions, which I promise is a real stat. You can look that up. It's absolutely insane. But I think the biggest area of growth that we've seen in Jayden Daniels' game so far this season is that he's willing to be more aggressive. Yes, the completion percentage is insane. The efficiency is nuts. But the fact that he's been that efficient while also being more aggressive is just outrageous. If you look at the Tampa game earlier in the year, I mean, there was a few throws where I was begging him to throw it down the field. I mean, it was there. He was clean. The pocket was fine. He had deep throws on the table, and he just was leaving a lot of meat on that bone, so to speak. And that was where I was really frustrated because he did that a lot at LSU as well. So fast forward to at least early this regular season, and I thought Jayden just, again, was leaving a lot of meat on that bone over the middle. And then week 2 happened, and then week 3 happened, and then finally week 4 happened. And I'll be damned, he's one of the more efficient passers over the middle of the field in just this first month of the season. And to see him develop this rapidly and to use every single blade of grass and to be fearless over the middle and to actually pull the trigger on these deep throws, even when the picture isn't completely clean. I just love this growth. I love the development. I love that Cliff Kingsbury is doing his best to give him as good of protection as he can. He'll use double chips. He'll use 6 and 7-man pass protections because the offensive line, at least in true drop back pass sets, they're not the most efficient pass protectors, so Cliff is doing everything he can to help them out, and he's trusting Jayden to just rip it when it's there, and he's doing that now. You can literally see his confidence growing game after game. He knows he can make these throws. He knows his receivers are going to come down with it, and he's oddly trusting an offensive line that nobody trusted going into this season. This is what it's all supposed to look like. Now, I do acknowledge that they are kind of on their own planet in terms of their play style relative to the rest of the NFL. Nobody is at the same time as conservative or as aggressive as them, depending on the down and distance. Their splits, especially from a play calling perspective, are very wild, and there's nobody else like them. So I'm very curious to see how they adjust throughout the season as the rest of the NFL gets the book on them. Because rest assured, if I figured all this out, everybody else is going to figure it out too. And they have games coming up against the likes of the Ravens, the Bears, another bout with the Giants, and of course that matchup with the Steelers in November, where all of those teams can stop the run on early downs and then put them kind of behind that second and medium sweet spot that they want to be in. They can also rush the passer with 4 and win with 4. They have athletes on the second level that can keep up with Jayden Daniels in space, and they have secondaries that are good enough to play really tight match coverages. The Commanders have played 2 defenses like that so far. They got destroyed by the Bucs in week 1, and then they had a field goal festival against the Giants the week after that, where yes, they did win, but they also didn't get any touchdowns in the red zone. So the Giants defense did their part. The Giants offense did not. But they're going to see that Giants defense again, and they're also going to see a few more defenses on top of that that are even better than the Giants, and they're even better than the Buccaneers. I want to emphasize, I am not predicting a collapse here. I am not predicting that there's going to be a huge fall off. I'm just merely acknowledging that the Commanders' offense is built literally and figuratively different than every other offense in the league. And if an idiot like me figured some of this stuff out, I'm pretty sure the actual coaches in the league figured it out too. I'm not saying they're about to run into a barrier, but they might run into an obstacle. Or 2, or 3. And I'm very curious to see how this team responds. All right, that'll do it for today. One quick reminder, if you would like to get my full thoughts on everything that happened in week 4, I believe the same day that this episode comes out, the week 4 recap show is going to go live over on our podcast channel, the Bootleg Football Podcast. So I talk about a lot more than just Jayden Daniels on that show. We also do our TNF live streams every single Thursday night. This week is going to be Tampa and Atlanta, so make sure to come by for that. And then we do our weekly preview shows that go live on Fridays, previewing the next week. So that'll be week 5 when this comes out, I'm pretty sure. I probably should have written an outro for the rest of this, but thank you for watching, and I will see you soon-ish.